So we're going to continue here with malnutrition, as I was cut off in the middle of the video. But I just want to mention that we discussed how malnutrition can happen to both you and people in underdeveloped countries, or I should say developing nations. It doesn't really matter whether or not you are living in wealth or not. It's about the amount of nutrients you're receiving from your food. So I had you guys do a little activity. You looked at your diet and decided, do I eat nutritiously, or is it potential for my body to be malnourished? And many of you, I think, thought that you would assume, or you would say that you were malnourished. So American diets tend to be high in proteins and often too many fats, right? Think about fast food, right? Whereas people in developing countries, they're going to be having diets with different nutritional values that are missing, right? But we need to be getting the right amount of vitamins as well as the amount of calories that we need. Both those things are vital to our survival. So carbs have 4 calories per gram, fats have 9 calories per gram, proteins have 4 calories per gram. Those are averages. It's more like 4.5 for carbs and proteins, but we'll just kind of use 4 as a general number. Most developing nations' diets, you can guess this, but their diets are high in what? Carbs, right? And they're not having enough proteins and fats, kind of flip-flopped. Lots of rice, other different, not proteins, but other different carbohydrates, right? We all need amino acids, right? So there's essential ones that we need and we don't get from our foods. Sorry, let me go back to that. But amino acids are building blocks that create proteins, right? And most of our body is made up of proteins that build our muscles and build our, the many other structures in our cell walls. Just pretty much anything that is part of our cells are made up of, for the most part, proteins, and those are created through amino acids being built into the different proteins our body needs. So we need certain foods that give us those amino acids, right? Okay, so ecology of food. Let's talk about food efficiency. So there's an input and there's an output, right? How much input is being added to make something happen, right? Or make a food source, and then what's the output? What are the calories we're getting out of that food being created, right? And then there's old foods versus new foods. Old foods being things that are from the past, things that we have been tilling the land for long periods of time in history and human history, right? And new foods are things that are genetically modified and things that we don't really know as well, or things that we don't realize that they've been created specifically by humans more recently so that we can get higher output. So yield is a big factor here, right? What's the yield? So when something's genetically modified, you're going to have a higher yield most of the time when the crop is being raised, because you're modifying its genes so that it's hardier, it's better at survival. It can fight off pests. It can do lots of different things. So you're looking for higher yield. So those are new foods. Okay. So when it comes to energy efficiency, this image here, right, we're looking at the different products that we can have, the different food types, and how the input versus the output, right? So what are the kilocalories of fossil fuel input per kilocalorie of protein output? So if we look at the ratio, right, you can see the difference. So this rangeland beef has very little kilocalories of fossil fuel, in fact, pretty much none, whereas the feedlot beef has a much higher amount of kilocalories of fossil fuel being put in. And then, yes, you get a much higher amount of protein output than the rangeland beef. But again, you didn't have to put any fossil fuel into the rangeland beef. And then when we look at nutrition, right, the nutritional values have changed, and also what does a good, healthy diet look like has changed a lot. So we had food pyramids in the 1970s trying to help people to know how to eat well, and today we use more of a pie chart that mostly we want